Join me as I dive into the creepiest house parties ever thrown and see if I can survive the night without losing my mind. House parties are supposed to be fun, a time to let loose and have a blast with friends. But sometimes things take a dark turn. We've all heard the horror stories of parties that got out of control. But what happens when the line between fun and fear gets blurred? When we think of house parties, we imagine laughter, music, and good times. But there's a darker side to these gatherings. Behind the masks of excitement and revelry, there can be an undercurrent of fear, of uncertainty, of the unknown. It's this thin line between revelry and terror that we're going to explore tonight. In the world of house parties, things can go wrong in a split second. Prank gone too far, a misplaced trust, a hidden secret. Any of these can lead to a night of terror that you'll never forget. It's the unexpected dangers, the eerie occurrences, and the unexplained events that can turn a night of fun into a descent into madness. As we delve deeper into the world of creepy house parties, we'll discover that sometimes it's not just the ghosts and ghouls that we need to be afraid of. It's our own friends, our own imaginations, and our own darkest fears. So, are you ready to join me on this journey into the heart of horror where the party never stops, but the terror might just consume you? In the small town of Ravenswood, there was a party that would go down in infamy as one of the most terrifying house parties in history. It was supposed to be a night of fun and games, but it ended in bloodshed and terror. The party was held in an abandoned mansion on the outskirts of town, a place with a reputation for being haunted. As the night wore on, strange things began to happen, doors slamming shut, disembodied voices whispering in the darkness, and an unseen presence lurking in the shadows. First, it was dismissed as a prank gone wrong, but as the night wore on, the occurrences became more frequent, more intense, and more terrifying. It was as if the house itself was alive, and it was determined to destroy the partygoers. The most shocking part of the story was yet to come. As the police investigated the aftermath of the party, they discovered that one of the guests had gone missing, never to be seen again. The house, it seemed, had claimed its victim, and the party had become a nightmare from which there was no escape. But that's not the only story we have for you tonight. Tales of parties where the guests were trapped in a never-ending loop of terror, reliving the same horrors over and over again. Fresh stories of parties where the hosts themselves were not what they seemed, hiding dark secrets and sinister motives behind their smiling faces. As we explore the world of creepy house parties, we'll uncover the secrets, the lies, and the terrors that lurk in the shadows of these seemingly innocent gatherings. So, if you're ready to face your fears, to confront the darkness that lurks within, then join me on this journey into the heart of horror where the party never stops, and the terror might just consume you. In the end, it's clear that not all house parties are just fun and games. Some can lead to serious, nightmarish events. So, the next time you're invited to a party, remember the stories we've shared tonight, and think twice before accepting that invitation. If you've got a creepy house party story of your own, share it with us in the comments below. If you're ready for more spine-tingling tales, be sure to check out our next video, where we'll explore the creepiest campfire stories that will leave you sleeping with the lights on. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.
Story 1, The House That Wanted to Party. Part 1, The Invitation. Ravenswood was a quiet town most of the year, but every Halloween, it came alive with parties, haunted houses, and tales of terror. This year's bash was set to be the best yet, or so everyone thought. When their usual venue fell through, a group of friends suggested the Hanover Mansion. The house was infamous for being haunted, left to decay on the outskirts of town for nearly a century. Locals swore the place was cursed, but the thrill of exploring the forbidden outweighed the risk. As they spread the word, over 100 people agreed to join. The mansion was foreboding even from the outside, towering blackened windows, ivy twisting around the walls, and a gate that groaned as they pushed it open. As the guests filtered in, a few noticed something odd. Every door they entered through slammed shut on its own. The laughter and music soon masked their nerves, though, and everyone decided to brush it off as a gust of wind. They didn't know the house was just getting started. By midnight, the crowd had filled every room, and drinks flowed as people danced in elaborate costumes. Suddenly, the music cut off. A few people booed, calling for the music to be restarted, but an odd creaking sound filled the silence, as if the house itself was moving. Doors began to close one by one, sealing the rooms. When someone tried to leave, they discovered that every door in the mansion was now locked. Phones had no service, and panic set in as the guests realized they were trapped. Part 2: The Guests of Honor. As people banged on the doors, desperate to escape, a chill swept through the mansion. The air grew frigid, and a low hum echoed from the walls. At first, they thought someone had set up hidden speakers to scare them, but soon, whispers filled the rooms, soft, hissing voices, just on the edge of hearing. "Get out," they seemed to say. The guests clung to each other, laughing nervously, convinced it was an elaborate prank. But as the night wore on, the occurrences grew more sinister. One by one, people reported seeing strange figures at the edges of the rooms, tall, shadowy shapes that vanished when approached. Friends began to disappear without a trace, and an overwhelming feeling of dread filled the air. In the main hall, a group discovered a mirror where their reflections didn't match their movements. Some saw themselves covered in blood, or with faces twisted into horrific screams. A girl named Mia ran from the mirror, her face as white as a sheet, and insisted she saw her reflection whispering for her to leave. But there was no exit. No escape. Then the lights began to flicker. People huddled together, searching for a way out as the whispers grew louder, like dozens of voices surrounding them. Doors slammed, and an unseen force seemed to shove them deeper into the house, separating them. Desperate to find a way out, they spread out, calling for help, but their cries were answered only by an eerie, mocking laughter. Part 3: The House Claims Its Own. By dawn, only a few of the original guests were left, wandering the darkened halls in silence, each one carrying the weight of what they had seen. No one could find the main entrance anymore. It was as if the house itself had swallowed it up. Then, a strange smell filled the air, something metallic and faintly sweet. Blood. It trailed from one room to the next, and as they followed it, they found themselves drawn to the grand staircase at the center of the mansion. At the top of the staircase, a massive chandelier flickered to life, casting an eerie, yellow glow. Figures were gathered there, shadowy and distorted, and as the remaining guests drew closer, they realized with horror that these figures were their missing friends, now pale, with hollow eyes, staring down at them in silence. One by one, each survivor was forced to step forward, compelled by an unseen force. The doors slammed shut behind them, sealing them in the house for good. Days later, the police investigated the empty mansion, finding nothing but the faint sound of laughter echoing through the halls and a single, blood-smeared banner that read, "Welcome to the party." Story 3: The Endless Party. Part 1: Midnight Mystery. A group of college friends had rented a cabin for Halloween, eager to escape from midterm stress. They planned a weekend of carefree partying, complete with costumes, music, and plenty of drinks. As the night wore on, they settled into the cozy cabin, everyone in high spirits. But as the clock struck midnight, the music cut out, and the power went down. Jake, the group prankster, laughed, saying it was just part of the Halloween experience. He pulled out a flashlight, shining it under his chin as he told a ghost story about a cursed cabin that trapped its visitors forever. As he spoke, a strange fog rolled in around the cabin, pressing against the windows like a suffocating blanket. One by one, they began hearing odd sounds, soft scratching from the walls, heavy footsteps from the floor above, and voices faintly whispering their names. Nervous laughter turned to genuine fear as the noises grew louder, more insistent, and they realized they couldn't leave. Every window and door refused to budge, as though the cabin itself was alive, holding them captive. Part 2: A Looping Nightmare. When morning didn't come, the group's panic set in. No matter how long they waited, the sky remained a pitch-black void. They tried breaking down doors and smashing windows, but the cabin refused to let them escape. Time began to blur, with the friends growing tired, hungry, and paranoid. Every attempt to leave ended in failure, each step somehow leading them back to the cabin. Tensions rose as they turned on each other, each blaming the other for the trap they were in. Friendships broke, arguments spiraled into violence, and one night, a friend named Sarah simply vanished. They searched every corner of the cabin, calling her name, but she was gone. All they found were deep scratches on the walls, as if she had been clawing her way out. As days stretched into weeks, another friend went missing, leaving behind eerie, distorted laughter echoing through the rooms. Their fear turned into despair, their minds twisted as the cabin closed in on them, feeding off their terror. Part 3: The Cabin's Price. Jake, the last one left, finally understood the cabin's curse. It wanted them, needed them, and the only way to escape was to join it. As he sat alone in the dark, waiting for the cabin to claim him, he noticed a faint sound, a low, rhythmic tapping coming from beneath the floorboards. Trembling, he pried up a loose board, only to find Sarah. Her face was pale, her eyes lifeless, but she was smiling, her hand reaching out for him. Jake screamed, backing away, but he could feel the cabin closing in, whispering promises that he would never leave. When a group of hikers finally found the cabin months later, it was empty. But the walls were covered in scratches, and the faint sound of laughter seemed to echo through the silent rooms, as if the cabin's newest guests were waiting for someone to join the party that never ended. Story 2: The Host in the Mirror. Part 1: Reflections of Fear. Lauren's new house was a dream come true, spacious, modern, and with a history dating back to the 1800s. It was the perfect place for her Halloween housewarming party. She and her boyfriend, Max, invited all their friends, transforming the house into a haunted wonderland with cobwebs, eerie lighting, and a haunted mirror in the bathroom they'd found in the attic. The mirror was beautiful but old, with an ornate golden frame and slight discolorations in the glass. It fit perfectly with the Halloween decor, giving the bathroom an eerie, gothic touch. But from the start, strange things happened. A friend named Jake came out, pale and visibly shaken, saying he'd seen his reflection wink at him when he hadn't moved at all. Lauren laughed, thinking it was just a trick of the old mirror. But soon, others reported seeing themselves differently. One girl claimed her reflection was smirking at her, another swore she saw a second figure behind her. Yet every time Lauren checked, her reflection appeared perfectly normal. The party wore on, and the guests continued to dismiss the mirror as an elaborate prank. But in the early hours of the morning, one guest, Sarah, came running out of the bathroom, her face twisted in terror. I saw myself whispering to me," she stammered, barely able to speak. It said, "Get out before it's too late." Part 2: The Double in the Dark. By now, everyone was unsettled, yet morbid curiosity kept them checking the mirror. When Lauren's boyfriend, Max, went in, he was gone for a disturbingly long time. When she called out, there was no response. Finally, she opened the door, only to find him standing in front of the mirror, staring at his own reflection. His eyes were wide, unblinking, and his face was twisted in horror. But when she called his name, he turned to her, his face blank. "I'm fine," he said in a monotone voice that didn't sound like his own. When he returned to the party, he was different. He barely spoke, his face blank, his movements stilted. And every so often, he would catch Lauren's gaze and give her a smile that chilled her to the bone. Soon after, another guest went missing, only for her to reappear minutes later, staring out blankly, her movements and speech robotic. One by one, guests began to disappear and return, each one a bit colder, a bit less human. Lauren's heart pounded as she realized her friends were being replaced by something. And all of them seemed drawn to the mirror. Part 3: The Mirror's Secret. Panicked, Lauren tried to pull her closest friends aside, telling them they needed to leave. But as they moved to the door, every single reflection stepped in front of it, blocking their way. Their faces held smiles, twisted and chilling, as if they were mocking her. Desperate, Lauren ran back to the mirror, staring at her own reflection, demanding answers. But her reflection only smiled, mouthing the words, "Welcome home." The glass began to ripple, and as she watched, her reflection extended a hand out from the glass, grabbing her wrist and pulling her closer. Lauren screamed, but her voice was drowned out by laughter, her own voice, from the reflection. In one final, terrifying pull, she was yanked through the mirror's surface, her last sight that of her friend staring in horror. Days later, Lauren was declared missing, though her friends swore she was still inside the house, her faint reflection haunting the mirror whenever someone walked by.